Hello viewers, welcome to Southall Television. Firstly, please accept my apologies, and on behalf of Southall Studios that we are 10 minutes late, but we thought we'd give our audiences a chance to settle down on their couch before we start this beautiful discussion on today's topic. So in our studio today is a very special guest. Her name is Rani Bilku. Just before I introduce her, a few announcements to our viewers. You can comment on Facebook through the comments page, and I can see that and I can try and ask Rani the questions, whatever's coming through. You can also subscribe to the YouTube TV channel. Now, Rani Malik is in hospital, and I'm sending her our smiles and loves from here to get better soon and come back to the host seat as soon as possible. So, hi Rani, and we wish you a very speedy recovery. So now I'd like to turn to my guest for today. It's Rani Bilku, and we are going to be talking on GINA and safeguarding children and families. So, welcome Rani to our studio here, and I'd like you to start by telling us what made you to get involved in GINA to start with? How did you start this organization?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me here today, and speedy recovery to Rani as well. Well, GINA, as you know, GINA means to live, and that essentially is what we want people to do. So through that, there's many issues that face our communities, and not just our communities, it can be anyone. So GINA was a conception actually from when I was, probably quite little, because I saw a lot of gender inequalities within our communities. Even growing up in Birmingham, it was always about giving the best sort of present to my brother, or it's okay, you're only a girl, you don't need to know what's going on. So I remember growing up, it was always, it's not fair just because I'm a girl. So those are sort of issues that I was facing growing up, and I think many of your viewers will probably align themselves to things like that. So when I got married, now I only moved from Birmingham to Slough. When I got married, I was it was just almost alien to me. Not only was I trying to build up a new relationship, obviously with my husband, and it was straight down the middle, an arranged marriage, you know, but I was always trying to, you know, form relationships with the in-laws. And the issue of getting married within our communities isn't just a man-woman relationship. It is actually a communal, you know, relationship. So I found that very difficult. Isolation was the one word that I think in my, you know, when I first got married, is the one word that would really resonate with me. So it was through those sort of issues that I began to look at the issues of women, my mums, my grandmother, my peers, and then obviously, you know, just people that I talked to as to what the issues were, you know, for women, and then also the compassion for men that we need to talk about as well.
Okay, so I mean, we live in Britain here, and of course this is being telecasted to India and all over the globe as well. You know, I mean, to say the least to you, cultures, I think, I mean, we come from a very British cultural society, and we are all heavily, you know, with this, intertwined with the British culture and our Indian culture, and of course it's producing a different type of culturalism in this place. So how do you think our culture is adapting? Do you think it has changed on this issue from before, or do you think it's still moving in the same direction and we need to do more?
Well, the issue of culture is never stagnant. Culture always is very fluid. And yes, we've got the British culture, but when in definition, what is the British culture? Now, when we're looking at people who've come from India in the 50s and 60s, they brought the Indian culture per se here in the UK. Now, India has moved on over the decades, as opposed to that Indian person who came in the 50s and 60s, which has stayed in his or her head. So that's when we have the clash, where India's moved on. India's a lot more progressive in many ways, and there are some Indians living here and which are not as progressive. So I think there are positives within the culture, but equally there is a lot of negatives. So the issues of FGM, violence against women and girls, sex selection, abortions, female infanticide, you know, oppression of women, that is a very much a cultural issue.
Right, okay. I'd like to just take the conversation a little bit in a different direction. You're talking about immigration, and you were talking about the different aspects of people who are coming here, and what are the difficulties they're facing? I mean, would you tell our audiences, like, what are the kind of the taboos they're going through, or is it a taboo, or is it much more than that, or is it exploitation? So what's going on from that angle?
Okay, the issue of immigration is always contentious, especially now, we're in the world of fear, we're in the world of, religious, I think identity is really, I suppose feared is the word. So when it comes to immigration, and there's also political fighting as well about immigrations and migrations. So people who've come, there's many ways of coming into the country. So you can, from the Home Office point of view, you can come either as a spousal a visa, or you can come as a student, or there's so many different ways. But many have also come undocumented as well, through lorries and those sort of things. But some have come legally, especially in the days of when the Labour Party was sort of, and they've come on student visas and overstayed. So there are many ways now that people are being exploited because the government have made it, as they call it, non-compliant, but I like to call it quite hostile in terms of how people can work, how they can get bank accounts, driving license, or even rent. So people who are undocumented are being penalised. And someone might say, quite rightly so, because you haven't got the right to be in this country. Now, through that very tight regime of being hostile and compliant, landlords and employers are taking advantage of them. And our community, unfortunately, sadly, it's our community who is taking advantage of our migrants. So there's sexual abuse, which has been taking place, financial abuse. Many people, they think that they're getting their visa done, or they think that they're going to the Home Office. They go to these charlatan lawyers or agents. They take the money, and then nothing happens. So these poor migrants are then left exposed.
So in that case, I mean to say this is a really important topic, because here the women are coming, or whoever is coming from India is coming extremely unprepared, and they really don't know what game is going on in Britain as far as the politics is concerned here, as far as the immigration situation is concerned. Language is a problem as well, and there's so many other issues that are happening here. And lots of families are even taking loans to send their children here, and then, it doesn't always pay back. Yeah. Now, in your opinion, or what kind of solutions are there? Suppose somebody gets themselves into this predicament, and suppose, like, we are live on, Facebook as well. So if there's a case study, or suppose someone has got themselves into this situation and they are in Britain and they are from a remote town in Gujarat or Punjab or South India or somewhere, what can Gina do? What are you trying to tell the viewers? Like, what can they do in order of some sort of help, for our people in this?
Okay, first and foremost, people who are coming from either the African or the Indian subcontinent, usually men deal with authority there. And the authority in India or Indian subcontinent or the African subcontinent is very different to what the authorities are like here in the UK. So especially women don't normally deal with authority there. So there's a fear of authority, first of all.
Right.
And that is where people, when they're exploiting individuals, that they hold on to that fear. Right, so all I would like to say to anyone that's listening, or if you know anyone who you think is being either financially or sexually exploited, is not to fear the authorities. Now, Gina is working with the Home Office. We have launched a first ever secular surgery in Slough. And it's not just, you can go anywhere really, in terms of there's other surgeries available up and down the country, which is run by the Home Office, which is normally run either at the Gurdwara or the mosque or the mandir. But we're the first secular surgery, so you can contact us. And what we're saying is, come and talk to us, find out what your rights are. And I'll give an example. Obviously, I can't give names, but let me just say, we had our surgery on Friday. A lady came, and she said she came in 2005, and she came, legitimately on a work visa. So she wanted to extend her work visa. She applied online to an organisation, and then she was ringing them up saying, look, it's running out, my visa. Have I got it? And they said, oh, sorry, no. Now, since 2007, she has been living illegally because she thought the government said no to me. Now, when she came on Friday, when we found out that this organisation had never applied to renew her migration. She parted with a substantial amount of money. and she'd been living illegally, and she's undocumented, and it's extremely painful to see someone who has been conned out of, let's just say, £30,000 plus on trying to be a legitimate person in this country. So all I would say to you, please contact us. Don't fear the authorities, and we can let you know what your rights and responsibilities are here as well. But equally, if you want to go back and you don't know how, you haven't got your passport or anything, we can help do that, because the Home Office is working with all the embassies, most of the embassies, to ensure that they have a passage there. And in addition, we're hoping as an organisation is when they go back to their countries of origin, we'll be able to hopefully have them economically empowered, but also emotionally as well, because the mental health is very important for people to return back as well. Because when they came, quite rightly, as you said, there's a lot of, they might have borrowed money, sold land, or whatever it may be, and then they come here and there's nothing. So the reason why they came here is for betterment and economic betterment. So we want to help them to actually see what their choices can be.
So I think we are giving out a very strong message to our viewers that yes, please do all come down to Britain. It's a beautiful place and a beautiful country, we have to say. But in the same token, get in touch with an organization, so at least that bridge and that link is there for your protection and for your security, and you're not alone. You have a backing of an organization behind you. So here we are with Gina International Rani Bilku, and she's talking to us about the vulnerability aspect of women. So could you tell us a bit more about the vulnerable aspect of women, and how does sexuality come into it as well, and what are the problems women, how do they get into this basically? I mean, is it because of the jobs, or because their families have stopped supporting them, or what is the situation that leads into these kind of negative traps?
Okay, first and foremost, right, it goes back to the basics. So when children are being brought up, we don't talk about any issues about sexuality, we don't talk about anything. So if there's any, even within the home, if there's any abuse going on, usually the mother always says, shh, be quiet. So we suppress any abuse. Right. So when people come here into this country, legally or otherwise, and they're being exploited, they think we have the concept of sharm, izzat, bezdi, and then they feel I can't go anywhere, because if I go to the police, they might say you have to go back to wherever you come from. The police, their remit is if there is any migration, if there is any, they might say, they might say what they are concerned about is crime.
Yeah.
So all they're concerned about is making sure there's no crime being committed. So they don't need to fear anything. So that's one of the issues that we're trying to get out to the community. If there is something that's going on, please come and tell us. But also, when we're looking at sexual assaults, when we're looking at the oppression of women, when we're looking at people who are given rooms on the basis that they then are getting sexually assaulted, which is actually amounts to rape. So we must make sure that we can talk to people, and usually those perpetrators are men. They hold the power. So they normally tell them, well, if you tell anyone, you're going to go out of the country, you're going to do this. But all I would say to women, would you rather have a peaceful life as opposed to someone who's being systematically and continuously assaulted? And there is no sharm in that. The sharm isn't on them, it's actually on the man.
So basically, to our viewers, thank you for your Facebook comments. I mean, there's a lot of comments coming in, and we're going to try and answer as many questions as possible. But speaking about our culture, again, coming back to the same, the same thing, there needs to be a change of cultures, in the sense that there needs to be a strong, that women are also, have equal status. And power is something that is a patriarchal system, basically, that it's an old belief, I think. So what it is that this needs to change in our society. And the only way it's going to change is, I suppose, if women come out and are brave enough to talk about these issues, and even at an international platform like we are in Britain, and we can connect with organizations maybe in India and other places as well. So there is support structures for both these. So how are you on that? I mean, would you like to connect to international organizations from different states of India?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, when we're looking at violence against women and girls, violence against women and girls, it's no longer local. It's no longer just in the UK. It is international. Right, because of globalization, the movement of people. So it is an international issue. So we need to make sure that other organizations, so whether we're talking about government, whether we're talking about NGOs, that we are all connected. I'll give an example. For if there is sex selection abortions is one of the work that we're doing here. Now, there are many of your viewers may know that India, especially Punjab and Haryana, has got the lowest figures of females to males. There's a high rate of female infanticide there. But did you know many women from here, UK, Canada and America, right, go over to India to go and seek their seek what the sex of their fetus is and to have it aborted if it's a boy, if it's a girl. So therefore, you're looking at the international violence against women and girls. This is before even a girl is born. We are actually, this is not an abortion issue.
No.
This is a gender inequality issue where we are killing our girls. But then it gets skewered into the abortion issue. So there's been many women here in the UK. So Sajid Atwell was a local resident in Hayes, not so far from here. She was coerced to go to Punjab and she was killed out there. That was nearly almost 15 years ago.
So I think what we really need to do is it's much larger than just domestic violence. I mean, here we have doctors as well. I mean, it's ridiculous that these are the people who are professional and they should be the ones who should give, you know, I know we have this Indian culture, Indian system, but even the doctors are performing these kind of abortions.
Because they come from the Indian thinking that it's fine to do that.
But it's not.
It's
so
not.
We are trying to give that message. It's definitely not. And if there are doctors watching this program as well, please, we would suggest that you please look at this very carefully, because a woman, a girl is also a human being, and it's very important that in the global scheme of things, like in the Western culture, these kind of practices, I mean, they may be very rare, but we really hope that the women are, not killed, before they're even born. To kill a child is really unfair. So unless it's a medical reason and the woman can't have
yes,
a
as
baby,
I said, it's not an abortion issue.
Yes.
It's just an inequality, gender
Yes.
inequality issue.
Yes. So, and also these things about fetuses and all that. I think in India particularly, it's becoming like all digital, I'm told, and there's a clinic as well that is doing this in Punjab somewhere.
But did you know, NMRATA, that now you don't even need to travel to India. You don't need to go even to a clinic. Yeah. You can quite simply Google in, something on Google and then get a clinic's name, where all you need to do is give them blood, and then they will know by 9 weeks whether you're having a baby boy or girl. And women are now using that option as a form of aborting girls as well. It's shameful.
From GINA organization, I just want to take the topic slightly different. We also, if you talk about goal, the Women's Development Goal number 5 of United Nations organization, and some of the big companies like Adidas, for one, has teamed up with certain organizations, even in India, and the propaganda is you save a girl, you save a life. And we need to do those kind of agendas, those kind of goals, educate the child, and you educate a country, So these are very important things that we need to inculcate in the minds of our people, and hopefully one day women will save this universe, or save this country, I should say. And particularly in India, where there has been a lot of about the Nirbhaya case recently. And in fact, I have got a question here from Rajini Ganesha about the child support and women, and she's running an academy in Bangalore in South India on the Nirbhaya self-defense. So could you just give us some comments on the Nirbhaya case, and perhaps how we can use this to empower women all over the world? What is the message you think that has come out from this case?
Well, the Nirbhaya case, or the Delhi rape as it's also known as, it wasn't the first, nor has it been the last rape in India. But the amount of media coverage and the outrage that poured in India was due to actually the students as well, and the digital media that was available to them. So I think it's really important to understand as to why this was such a big issue. It's been a big issue because we are absolutely fed up of what's happening with women. So the Nabaya case was also, I think, extremely fundamental in this platform of raising the awareness of sexual assaults in on public transport as well, because how many rapes since then have happened? But more so to the point, it actually had the international headlines as well. And the government then obviously got involved as well. But again, they were trying to suppress everything. But no longer can we suppress anything. But again, it comes down to education. So education doesn't just mean about reading and writing. It's education in terms of equality and everything. And when we're looking at education and we're looking at the oppression of women or sexual assaults in India, it's happening also not with the people who think they're in poverty or anything. It's actually happening with the middle class. Within, we've got the largest middle class in India, and what's happening in India in the middle class is let's just say it's not acceptable at all when it comes to inequality, when it comes to sexual assault. So the Nabaya case now, obviously, with the imminent hanging as well of the perpetrators, it's an absolute positive message, as in we will not accept this at all. And now Leslie, who made the India's daughter, right? So what I don't understand, so whilst we're, the government saying this is absolutely terrible, it should never happen, but how can India's daughter be then banned from India?
Yes.
And yet that the documentary itself was an eye-opening documentary.
Is that the BBC documentary you're talking about, which became so controversial in
India?
India?
It did, but there was nothing wrong with it. We held here in Southall with Sunny Hundal and myself and 13 of Sikhs, we held an event where we showed the documentary to the Sangat and the congregation, and they were appalled at what happened.
Because I think in the documentary, the perpetrators were shown as very poor background.
But they were.
They were. And I think more than the crime that was committed, it's a BBC program, and they were trying to go into why and how and what were the circumstances it was wrong completely what had happened, but the way the BBC had gone about it was from an angle of why and what and how society is and things. So maybe it was asking some different questions or addressing the issue from a British angle. I can't comment on that.
Well, when Nabaya happened, it was no longer India's issue.
Right.
First and foremost, rape is not just geographically just with India. It happens globally. It, regardless of faith, education, demographic, regardless of age, right? It happens everywhere. And the more rape happens within a house, within a home, than it does by a stranger. You normally know who the rapist is. So there's a misconception there. But once Nabaya was out of India and in the realms of this digital era, it no longer belonged to Nabaya. It became a human issue.
Right, because it did reach to the United Nations as well, I think, at one point. I think you've just answered one of our viewers' questions as well regarding how to reduce the number of sexual abuses against women and children. And
we need to talk. Mothers need to talk to their girls, and it's not telling them don't get raped, don't get drunk, don't wear this and don't go out. It's actually also telling their sons not to rape. But equally, yes, women need to be empowered and women need to be educated. But without men, that's not going to happen either. We have to work together. Yes. This is not about. This is not an issue about gender, opposed gender. This is about working together, and that's the only way that we can work together.
Okay. Now, I also know that you work with Black Asian minority. What is that all about then?
So either it's called BME or BAMA,
Yes,
which is
that's
Black
the
and
one.
Ethnic
Yes.
Minority communities, but also refugees as well. So refugees that come into this country or anywhere else, they are also vulnerable as well. Vulnerable due to, as you mentioned before, about language, could be about immigration status, etc. So they have to have a specialist service. So the normal generic service will no longer, it won't work for them. And I'll give you an example. So recently we just finished off a pilot study with the Police and Crime Commissioner,
Right.
and we were counselling. So these
Right.
were clients who were victims of crime. Right. And one of the things that we specialise is actually engaging with the BME community and or BAMA community. So the very fact I'm here today shows the fact that we are, you know, engaging with them, because domestic violence for a white middle-class generic woman will not be the same as one for a Punjabi woman, say here in Southall. There's different issues going on there, right? And also degrees of different acceptance and tolerance as well.
Yeah.
So within the study that we did for 3 months, 1 in 3 of them were men that came to us, and also all of them apart from 2 were from the BME, the Indian background or the Pakistani background. And one of the most services say we can't reach these hard to reach people. Actually you can, but you've got to be a little bit more creative in how to reach them. So most of the people that came were victims of domestic violence, and they almost had the same story. They tolerated it for a decade. They tolerated it for 6 years. He'll get better. I told my mum, and she said, that's what men do. Does it matter? You should be glad that you're in England. No, because it's that woman's human right that's been violated.
So basically there has to be definitely a big conversation, a two-way conversation at a family dinner table.
Yes.
And maybe perhaps, you know, you go out with your peers, you talk about these issues, and you have to learn to, you know, not ignore them, because you just can't brush it off the carpet.
No.
It's got to be addressed in a certain way. Talk to your elders and in a friendly sort of way, and then, you know, perhaps it's like an education in
I would
itself.
I would say for children if they're at school. So there's going to be, if you look at the statistics, 1 in 3 of us, right, have been or had been or are going through some sort of domestic violence.
Right.
Now the British Sikh report, their findings were 72% of Sikh women said they were concerned about violence and they were concerned about sexism. 72%.
That's massively huge, I have to say.
It is massively huge.
72%, I mean to say, it's you know, our viewers are listening, and I'm sure they're going to be shocked as to the high levels
and
of...
every week 2 women die in this country because of violence from a former partner or a partner.
Right.
So this is something that needs to be addressed, and we need to talk about it. Let's not tell women to stay quiet or appease the men, and it's not even men. So just this week, someone in Redbridge,
Right.
there was domestic violence with the sister-in-law, yeah, and she got a suspended sentence because she was working hard or whatever, you know, in the household, and that's still domestic violence. So the other issue is we always think about domestic violence as man and woman. No, domestic violence could be anyone in a house, in a domestic situation. So this sister-in-law and the mother-in-law and the father-in-law were extremely abusive to the daughter-in-law, and she'd had enough. And she ran away, and then, you know, she managed to tell someone. And this, in my mind, this is probably a positive, because now women are saying, I don't want this, I deserve better. I deserve a bit of dignity, and I deserve a bit of respect.
So Rani, do you work like undercover on these cases, like if they're coming to you, because there's such delicate relationships, you know, more often than ever, it's their own family, it's their own people, and you least expect that it's happening within the household. So are you saying, like, I mean, these kind of, they must require definitely some sort of specialist people involved in dealing with this kind of cases, right?
That's right, yeah. So as I said, it's, when you look at generic domestic violence, is very different to
Exactly.
what would come from the Indian or African subcontinent. And I'll give an example. Like, when we have family weddings, we have so many functions before we have that wedding,
Exactly.
right? And the amount of times, even your viewers will probably agree with me, that how many times when a girl got married, say last year or a couple of months ago, and she's not in the functions, and how many times have the older women or who have said, oh, you know, she's in her own house now, so it's a bit different. Why is that different? If someone is manipulating you, coercing you to saying you cannot go there, or you can't wear certain things, or you can't you know, ring your mum or ring your friends, or you can't go out now because you're married, right? That is coercive and controlling behaviour. We cannot normalise that anymore. And, you know, in December, it became illegal. So under legislation, it is illegal to do that coercive manipulation. So when we're looking at also domestic violence, people think it's just about hitting, right? It isn't. You're
it's
looking
mental
at
abuse,
mental,
physical, emotional, spiritual,
financial,
financial,
yeah,
economic abuse as well.
and
It
also
takes various forms.
Rape within marriage. It is still rape is sexual assault. So there is a lot of myths, and no religious faith says that you can do that.
That's right. So I think our message would be quite similar, that education is more important rather than you know, spirituality is each to their own, but it's not going to wipe away the problem by just sitting in front of gurus and sannyasis and trying to think that, oh, you were the victim of bad luck or something. No, it's not like that at all.
So this is again another vulnerability. What happens? Because then they'll say, you know, I know women that go to some of these pundits or, you know, whatever, charlatans as I call them, and say, oh, I know, it's because you've got this blue on. That's why it's bad. You need to give me £501 and I will do something and you'll be fine. But also give. Did you know that I know someone who actually gave her earrings because they said someone gave these earrings and they said it was bad luck for them, and she just gave them. And you think in any normal human being would think they're taking advantage of someone who's vulnerable. And this is where the issue of jadutuna, witchcraft and all the rest of it come. Please, we make our own luck. And also we can be very vulnerable if we're in a very vulnerable situation. You need, all I would say is go to your GP, right? Talk to them. If you're at school, college, university, workplace, talk to your teachers or, you know, anyone in management and tell them, or HR, tell them what's going on. But GPs is the one that I would say, because of data protection, they've got confidentiality. So a lot of the time, women or men, but they won't talk to even GPs because they think everyone's going to know their business. No, but they're confined by data protection. But equally, for example, if someone is going through domestic violence for 5-6 years, they've never told anyone, and then one day they walk out, you've got to have that proof. So all I would say is just tell the GP, look, I'm going through a bit of issues with my husband or my in-laws or whatever. There is an account there. And because he's a professional,
but I think what it is that we do have global viewers as well, and I'm not sure how the practice is, how advanced they are in India, whether they keep computerized systems or not. If they want to get in touch with you for documentation purposes, like for the police or for, you know, other help, how can these people contact you?
Okay, from our website,
Can we
which
just
is
put this up to our
it's
viewers?
called gina@.org.uk. And we're also on Facebook, which is Gina, which is JEENA.
Okay, so they can contact you, and you will always respond to their emails and messages and whatever else they have questions to ask you, and it'll be, I think, in utmost confidentiality as well. Of course, yes. And then perhaps you could put them in touch with the right people, the right groups, the right help. Even if they are from India, I'm sure Rani Bilku is highly qualified and she can connect with people from other countries as well.
Can I just also add, there are many women who've come on spousal visas, or just, you know, that they get taken back to their countries of origin, or even British citizens get taken back. If there is any issues that need to, and people are stuck out there for documentation, etc., we've got a couple of cases at the moment, please get in touch with us, and especially if you have children.
Okay, I just want to ask you, because it's always interesting, I always wonder what the Hindus think about this National Hindu Council. And you seem to be working with them as well on some pilot schemes. How is the National Hindu Council and Gina working together? Because, you know, I ask you this question, and I'll be very blunt, because of the RSS issues and their thought processes. So obviously, if there are organizations linked to that, then it's kind of a barrier. How I mean, to say what kind of work is the National Hindu organization doing with Gina to help these people and help these cases? Basically?
Because, well, we get referrals from them, but also I think as an organization, we have to work with everyone. Right, and especially if we get referrals from people coming in, and it's really, really important for people to understand that it is not about any faith. This is it's an issue about individuals. So working with the Muslim Council, working with the Sikh Council and the Hindu Council, but also the Hindu Temple of UK as well.
I see.
Yeah, so we work across the board. Now, so there's no faith that you can say is
working in isolation. This
yes.
is the beauty of being in Britain. I think that we do have problems with the funding issues from governments. It's not so forthcoming as it used to be. We can't even apply for funds. There's no budget there actually to even get any funds. So a lot of it is being done through philanthropy, and a lot of it is being done through organizations, networking, Indian organizations or Indian subcontinental organizations as the case may be, and they're trying to work together, put their resources in, and trying to organize various things. I think there is a workshop also coming up later on this year. This is going to be a free workshop. So perhaps if you're interested, then you could write or speak to the producers of the show, and they would tell you more information about it as the show progresses. Certain platforms such as these is basically to bring the communities together. They can interact with the Metropolitan Police, meet people like yourself at the show as well, and then perhaps get a better understanding, or if they're stuck in a situation or if they're vulnerable, they can meet in these platforms and in ways that they can engage with each other. So in your opinion, I mean, we've covered a lot of things, but there's also one more pilot scheme, Rani, if I may ask you, about the beauty
ugly side of beauty.
Yeah,
yes.
Ugly side of beauty.
Ugly
I mean,
side of beauty.
Before you just even start, I mean, when I was reading when I was trying to think about the questions to ask Rani, and as you can see, it's all just flowing because the lady herself she's done so many pilot schemes and highly qualified, and she has a lot of knowledge as well. But it was a very catchy name, I have to say. So would you like to tell our viewers, what is this scheme about? Okay,
so it came about by a beautician actually, and she wanted to know, she wanted to come and volunteer, and so I said, this is what forced marriage is, and a light bulb moment happened, and she said, you know what, about a couple of months ago, I think I did someone who got forced into marriage. And when I delved into it, she said, well, this lady rang and she said, can you do my niece's makeup on, next week? And she said, okay, but, did your other makeup artist, did she cancel or anything? And she goes, no, we did the wedding quite quickly. And she said, first of all, that was quite bizarre because normally, I don't know about you, but normally weddings are about a year in advance, at least a couple of months, especially our weddings. And so that was the first cause for her. And then the other cause was actually, it was her aunt ringing. The bride herself never rang. And she said, normally 99% of the time, it's usually the bride ringing. So she said, well, that only gives me 5 days, to get a trial booked in. So when can I come and do the trial? And she goes, no, don't want to do the trial. So that was the other issue as well. So she said she went to the home, and normally, you have this nervous energy, this energetic energy in a wedding house. She said there was a lot of chaos, but it wasn't very upbeat or anything. And when she did the girl's makeup, or she saw her for the first time, there was always someone there. And she asked the bride she goes, what are you wearing? And she just shrugged her shoulders. And she goes, after I did the makeup, I said to her, do you want to have a look? And she said, no. She wasn't interested. So that got me thinking, actually these beauticians, makeup artists, event management companies, they're in an ideal situation, and beauticians, they're in an ideal situation where the trust is built up, and they can then look at the indicators. So if there's anyone in that sphere of makeup artistry or hair and beauty, Mendi, and you want to come to one of these workshops, please let us know, and we can book you in. So we've got 4 cover, in the next couple of months that we've got going on. So we just want to impart knowledge, so they then become champions and advocates. So we're not telling them that they have to hold her by the hand and run down the street or anything. It's just about ensuring that they know.
So I just want to add over here that this is basically for our British organizations.
Well, no, it could be anyone.
But I mean, if they're Indian organizations, they have to come to Britain to take part in the workshop, right?
For the workshop, but we
Yeah.
could go there, but also
Okay.
there will be an online, a digital thing that we will be doing.
The reason why I say this is because we are going to have a lot of organizations today watching this program, and basically I'm sure they're going to take some really good pointers from here and tune into your webcast as well. So please do put all those links on the website so our viewers can get the information, and also a good learning experience as to how these the new innovative ways that you have come up with.
And our partners there are Babtag, which is the beauty industry, you know, the umbrella. So it's really good to have an organisation, such a large global organisation. So hopefully in due course we will be running these workshops, you know, globally as well. So that's one of the reasons that they were so excited for this project. But also, you know, when we launched it at the House of Parliament, where Khalid Mahmood sponsored the event, it was well received.
So I think the women empowerment, like your organization, and there are hundreds of organizations in Britain that are doing this kind of work on gender, women empowerment, and also the men's issues also are very vitally important, keeping in line with the United Nations goals as well. All these organizations are trying to work in such a way so that it's an empowering message for both the sexes, I suppose, to take part in these discussions and try and get something that is more in lines with today, and so that we can have a better world and a better place to live in. Now, I mean, talking about you know, your organization, GINA organization. Now, can you tell us a bit more about the other aspects of GINA, which perhaps we haven't touched on the program, and we perhaps, like, you know, missed it or something?
Yeah. So one of our creative ways of engaging with the community is to be in public sphere. So we've got the Bhangra Awards coming up, so we'll be there with a stand. We're doing something on the 14th, which is the seat giving. So they've got a bike ride, we'll be there. So we have like a, you know, table like this, and we'll have a suitcase there, and we'll have a little baby bag, and people think it's quite, you know, bizarre having, why have you got these there? And when we then strike up that conversation, so we talk to them, we say, well, these suitcases are given to people, so they can be men or women, but majority of the time they are women who find themselves homeless because of domestic violence. Now, when a woman, and I've seen this physically done this, where we've gone to pick up a woman and she's left with maybe 5 bin liners, and I look at her, you've been in this home that you've called, you know, this house that you called a home for over a decade, and where's the dignity of coming out with 4 bin liners? That's if she's lucky, right? And that got me thinking, and hence the GINA suitcases. So we give these suitcases to refuge, to also to hospitals, because maternity wards especially, because there is an increase in domestic violence when someone's pregnant. So that's why we have the baby bags. So in the baby bags we have nappies, we have, you know, the sort of cleaning, like baby powder, etc., and other essentials. And in the suitcases we have a duvet. We have so that's new duvet, a new pillow, new you know, towels, and essential items that you need, like a, you know, brush and everything, because sometimes women will leave with nothing. So it's a good way of giving them dignity, but also then striking up a conversation to Joe Public in a way that's not too offensive to people, because, you know, then people come to us and say, what do you do? You know, they'll have one of our, and, oh, that's good, I'd like to volunteer or whatever, and then guaranteed that same person will then ring me and say, I didn't really want to volunteer, but I am a victim of domestic violence.
I was just going to take my next question there, that how, I mean, suppose somebody wants to volunteer, like what are you looking for in volunteering?
Well, first of all, we need someone that is compassionate.
Empathic?
Empathy, compassionate, and they've got a bit of time. So we're looking for case study, people who want to be caseworkers, anyone who wants to do social media as well, because that's a big thing of getting our message across with all our campaigns of Ugly Side of Beauty or the immigration surgery, and also, you know, anyone that wants to be trustees. We've got a fundraising, you know, a committee, we have a marketing committee. So anyone that wants to get involved in any capacity, whether they've got 3 hours a month to spare, or they've got 5 to 10 hours a week to spare, so we can fit that in. So our first ever, not the first ever, but our first day of Volunteers Day that we've got is on the 3rd of June. So if anyone's free on that day, please come down and meet us.
So from Southall Television has done the right thing to call you at the right time, so that all the viewers who are watching it, at least in Britain, and the organizations, they will contact you hopefully, and try and do this as a community, at a community level, and also bring out and sort out these darker sides of life, because as much as we don't want to talk about it, there is a lot of pain in people's lives, and we need to press the nerves in a nice sort of way, so that it diminishes, or the society can become more enjoyable for people, because no one needs to suffer in life.
And that's why we call it Gina, because we've got to live.
That's right.
We've got to live our life for the best way. Can I just say one of the things that you did say about safeguarding and children? Many women don't leave their homes because they think that the children will miss out. And when you go back and talk to the children, they said, wish mum had actually left, because it wasn't a nice childhood they had. And as an individual who was also a victim of this, and I remember my mum being beaten up while I was upstairs, it's a lot more horrific.
I was just going to say, because I think we have just some more time left on the show, but we could have spoken for so many other topics, especially about how it affects family and children. Or perhaps maybe the producers would request you to come down once more as well, so we could talk on the other aspects, because today we touched the aspects in regards to organization, how they can contact Gina, and how are the different various ways that we are able to work with the community. But we need to break this down and move into a individual nuclear family, and that would require, I think, another discussion, another day perhaps. But is there anything else you would like to add on this show while we are here? Have we missed out any? I mean, I'm sure we have not covered a lot of topics, but in the flow that we are going.
Yeah, I would say there's going to be many viewers listening, either they themselves or they know someone that has been affected by domestic violence. All I would say is appeal to them and ask that difficult question.
Are you going through the...
Is everything all right? And ask them, and don't make it generic, ask them specific things. You had that bruise, or why haven't you got any money? Or, anything that you... Just ask those questions, because believe me, that's all. Sometimes people just want that gateway to be open, and then they will flood in. And I think that's probably the most important. Ask those difficult questions. And also, when we're looking at someone who's a victim, a perpetrator, and then you have the bystander, it is actually the bystander who holds the key
to opening the door.
Opening the door, but also not turning a blind eye. So if you're a neighbor or someone that you're
dying for a cause that you could be saved through humanitarian angles, and it's normally the men as well who are out there, but they cover each other. They just they just go quietly and they don't say anything. I think this has to change as well between men cultures. No, it's not okay to do these things, and if somebody is doing it, or somebody who's doing it, then you've got to stop them from a male angle as well, as a community.
And that's what I'm saying, we need both genders to work together, because that's the only way effective mindsets will change and the culture will change.
Okay, and we've got only a couple of minutes left, so what is there anything else, or would you have any message for, we've given them a very strong signals out here, and the best way to connect to you would be through your website, and I'm sure you'll always respond.
And Facebook, Gina.
The Facebook, please leave those comments coming in. We need the feedback so we can improve our program here at the studios. We are in West London studios at the moment, where we are direct telecasting. I've been talking to Rani Bilku, and obviously you may see her come back on the show again as well. From our West London studio, and thank you to the Director of Programs in Southall. It was a very nice conversation with Rani Bilku, and I'm very thankful for you to come to the studios and be so open and honest about this discussion. I mean, it's elevated our whole, our whole meeting today. So I've got to turn off, viewers. Thank you for watching us, but please do let those comments coming in, and feedback is very, very helpful for our program. So on that note, we say a goodbye to you and we look forward to you next Sunday. Thank you very much and bye-bye from the studios here.
I miss her. She's coming home today.
Ovarian Cancer Action has created the first dedicated scientific research centre in the UK, determined to find a cure.
With your help, all your sisters, daughters, grandmothers, wives and mums can keep on doing what only they do best.
Ovarian cancer, those words still haunt me. So please, help Ovarian Cancer Action continue their life-saving research so that others like me have a fighting chance.
To make a difference to families like these, we need your help now. Whether you want to help us by sharing the symptoms with other women, raising funds for our research and awareness work, or volunteering your time, working together, we can save lives.